Breaking news here on HQ. Terence Crawford makes history, becoming the undisputed super middleweight champion, taking down Canelo Álvarez after moving up 2 weight classes. He wins by unanimous decision. Incredible effort from Terence Crawford to make history. Time now to bring in CBS Sports combat and boxing analyst Brian Campbell, who witnessed history in Vegas. You had a front row seat, BC. Terence Crawford did something that makes your jaw drop, right? And that was for me watching it on the screen. What was it like to see what he did in that stadium against one of the greatest fighters that we've ever seen?
Chris, it was humbling. It was surreal. Look, 2 years ago, when Terence Crawford walked through unbeaten Errol Spence Jr. to unify welterweight titles and stopped him in one-sided fashion, it raised his profile to another level. It was such a dramatic, beautiful performance that it even brought tears to some people's eyes in the arena. But what we saw 2 years later, 3 weight classes higher, against one of the greatest fighters in the history of this sport for the undisputed super middleweight championship, I don't know how you can put words to describe what we watched. What we watched was a living legend in Terence Crawford, the best of his era, who opened as a southpaw, never went back to his orthodox stance, took the best punches that Canelo Álvarez landed, and he did have his moments, particularly in those middle rounds, but was always one step ahead. When he needed to box, he outboxed Canelo, and when he needed to dig in there and exchange punches at close range, he was not only willing to do that, he was successful in achieving that. We've seen breakthrough performances before by star fighters in their prime, but do they come when they're 2 weeks out from their 38th birthday? Do they come when most people try to protect their unbeaten record? And here's Terence Crawford doubling down, going all in, daring to be great. Look, I got cliches for days, but I don't think any of them fully describe the beauty, the majesty, and the legendary performance that we saw tonight.
He is the first male boxer to win the undisputed title, right, in 3 different divisions during the 4-belt era. You really cannot understate how incredible of an accomplishment that is. Watching the fight, though, BC, when did you realize, or when did you know that Crawford had Canelo exactly where he wanted him?
Look, I had this fight scored, I think, closer than some that I was seeing in terms of an online reaction. When Canelo Álvarez rallied in those middle rounds, began to figure out the timing of Bud Crawford, was cutting off the ring, and some of that early speed advantage that Bud had wasn't making a difference, I figured this fight is going to go the distance, it's going to be close, and look, probably historically, Canelo Álvarez is going to get the job done. What I didn't necessarily expect coming in, even though I gave Bud all the opportunities to pull this upset, was that down the stretch in the championship rounds, he would actually act like the bigger puncher at times, act like the bigger man. It was really entering rounds 9, 10, where the momentum started to go his way. Look, Canelo never faded either. But Bud Crawford has this innate ability to rise to the occasion when it matters most. He's always been great in his career. There were long stretches, however, where he couldn't get the biggest names in the ring. But talk about making up for lost time, because what he did in those championship rounds, cutting off any possible rally from Álvarez to regain control of the fight, it was absolutely brilliant. Everything we talked about coming into this fight this week was the size difference between them. I wrote a story for CBS Sports this week that said, hey, don't count out the size of the chips on Crawford's shoulder. But did I even necessarily expect him to stand in there against the supposed bigger man, the bigger puncher, work from that southpaw stance, take the big shots, but land the better work? No, not necessarily. I've seen great fighters come in and out of this modern era. Guys like Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather, you can't take them out of the history books. They're incredible. But I don't even think per se that either one of those at this age have wins that are comparable to what Crawford has done in his last 3 fights. Absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, we will never forget this night as Terence Crawford did something that no male boxer has ever done. Now, he was asked after the fight, BC, is this it for him? He's not sure. What do you believe is next for one of the GOATs, if not the GOAT of his era?
Well, Bud gave all credit to God afterwards and really put forward that he's got to talk to his family. He's got to take time to let this sink in. One thing I'll say about Terence Bud Crawford, did he get paid handsomely tonight in this super fight? Of course. But money has never seemingly been his main focus, his main motivation. He is one of those rare athletes who cares about legacy, cares about how he will be remembered. That would lead me to believe that unless he feels there is a challenge out there that is worthy of putting that undefeated record to the test one more time, a challenge that he believes he can undertake, I think we may have seen the best of him, all of him on this night. If Terence Crawford never fights again, his legacy is impeachable, it's untouchable. And it is one thing I said this week coming in, that to try to put into perspective what it might look like for his reputation, for his legacy and career, should he beat Álvarez tonight, which he just did at Allegiant Stadium right here. I don't know if you can put a ceiling on the hyperbole or the in-the-moment reaction of where you want to put him historically. It's always a difficult thing to compare boxers of this era to the stars of the 20s, 30s, 50s, 70s, name your decade. It is a different game, so to speak. But whether you have Terence Crawford top 5, top 10 pound for pound, whether you put him literally on your Mount Rushmore, go back and watch this tape one more time. Watch the Errol Spence fight from 2 years ago. Yeah, he's that guy. He's the best of his era. He's a living legend. He's got literally nothing else to prove. But this is a unique time in boxing history where there's a lot of money at stake. There's some big platforms available. I'm sure Bud and his team will survey the field. I'm not sure, though, they can find a fight that equals everything that was on the line in this one against Canelo.
The pride of Omaha, Nebraska, now 42-0 in his career. As for Canelo Álvarez, right, you have to give him a lot of respect for the way he battled. He didn't duck any type of smoke. He does not come out with the W here on Saturday, BC. But what do you think is next for him?
Look, I think Canelo at 35 still showed you he can turn it up, right, when he needs to, and he did his best in this fight. I don't think we've seen the last of him. I certainly think we're done seeing the very best of him. While he didn't duck this challenge, there, of course, is that super fight out there with David Benavidez, who was so sick of waiting on Canelo at 168 pounds that he moved up to 175. Let's not forget one thing. The last Canelo Álvarez lost before this, and oh, by the way, Canelo's 3 losses, all to literal all-time greats and first ballot Hall of Famers, Mayweather, Bivol, and now Crawford. But the last time we saw him lose to Dimitri Bivol at light heavyweight, every time you hear him talk, he still wants that rematch. Right now, Bivol is the undisputed 175-pound champion. Could we see one more chapter to Canelo's career? It's something to think about because he, too, is chasing that same type of legacy and greatness. Only he's also the most handsomely paid guy of the post-Mayweather era, and he deserves that. But again, same thing with him. Whether he fights again or not, you're never going to argue with Canelo's legacy and reputation. I just think the competitor in him will not want to go out like this, will want to find another big opportunity to show his greatness. Yeah, we are all looking forward to see what that next opportunity will be. But on this night, Terence Crawford is your undisputed super middleweight champion, doing something that we will never forget. And BC, we never forget the words that you have to say about all the fighting that you watch. Thank you.